Fabulous from Maida Vale. That was Liela Moss and Ache in the Middle. So, mate, the Internal Working Model album, can you explain the concept or the thread behind it? Because there is one, isn't there?
Oh, it's the end of the day now. Blimey, I've got to get cerebral.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was sort of getting quite fascinated reading around the subject, and then I did a bit of a course in lockdown because, you know, there was a bit of extra time to stay up really late when you've had no sleep with a little kid to study something. But it's based on sort of the theory of childhood attachment theory. So it's one of the terms that they use to describe the way that you get this sort of imprinted sort of scaffolding very, very early on of how you are viewed by your sort of primary carer. So like how you conceive of yourself being autonomous and being looked after, you know, how you're perceived in the eyes of someone else, and how that emerges slowly in your first couple of years. And it's called your internal working model. And once it's in place in your brain very early on, it's there forever, man. So, you know, we're all behaving in ways that can be unexpected and not necessarily perfectly harmonious, because our internal models have etched our behaviours in a certain direction, you know. So yeah, I was sort of up late reading about that. I don't know why. I just became a bit obsessed with it for a few months and wrote it down, and then it stayed in the notebook long enough that it became the album title.
Right, okay. And so, I mean, they do, and I've said it before as well, you know, I mean, I've got kids, as you know, and having children does change you, doesn't it? It changes the way that you view things and think about things. It's bound to.
I mean, it changes the way that you have the capacity to think at all. That's what I've noticed, mate.
Right. Yeah, I'm hearing you.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a big roller coaster. You know, I've made all my solo albums have sort of been in that particular chapter of my life, changing from someone who didn't have a kid to, you know. So I guess I'm just writing myself through these records of understanding how I've left a certain independence behind, a certain liberty has gone now, and I'm just coming to terms.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've got to. It's real life, isn't it? And it's just you embrace what's happening around you. But there's also kind of a technology thread throughout it, isn't there?
I mean, the way we've been able to work, the way I can work is using sort of synths and technology, because I just haven't got the time to sort of put a band together permanently and record in that way. Like I work with my partner, and Toby and I can just like throw stuff down. We can take it in turns, you know, sort of working with electronica. It's just the method. It's the medium that's
makes it doable.
Yeah, it's the medium that's working for us. It's allowing us to continue to be creative at the moment. So yeah, we've been into it.
Yeah, I mean, and why not? But it's funny, you know, because I call it a sarcastic watch. So it's one of those watches that you can do loads of different things on. You know, I mean, you can't play football on it. Or
it tells you that you're really unfit or something.
Exactly that. But I tell you, and I call him a sarcastic watch because I'm sat down working and building. Don't laugh, working, I know, but building shows and stuff like that. So I'm sat down on my backside for a couple of hours, and then it will go time to stand, and I go, I'm busy.
It talks to you. It tells you what to do.
It doesn't talk, but it does. It flashes up with this thing goes, and I read it, and it says time to stand. I'm like, I'm busy, right? So and then I'm carry on a bit. Time to stand. I'm busy. I'm putting shows together for next week, and then after about 4 hours, I stand up, and he goes, "You did it! You did it!" You know. I mean,
but I've seen you up there in Manchester. You got your sweatband on. You got like those sort of weights, Velcro weights around your wrists and your ankles, and you're just constantly moving. You're up and down the steps while you're broadcasting. We know what a fitness freak you are.
No, you shouldn't have. Like, you see, I've got this image of just being lazy oaf, and now you've just destroyed that in front of my audience. This is despicable. Now, I'll tell you what, Liela, I do love the fact that, as you mentioned, in using technology and squirreled away, and you do live in a cottage in the wilds of Somerset, don't you?
I live in almost the middle of nowhere, but actually a shout out to my Somerset crew who have helped me get here tonight by assisting with various childcare, picking up school malarkey, you know how it is.
Okay. But I love that you see the juxtaposition of you making all of this technology-driven music. You should be making an album with fiddles and a riddle drum, shouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it should be way more Celtic than it is. But I suppose there's a little, electro goth under this blonde hair that just, you know, won't let it lie.
Electro goth. Well, it's funny, you know. I mean, because obviously we mentioned Gary Newman already, and Gary Newman, he didn't invent electronic music. Let's be straight about that. And obviously, Bowie's Low was a big influence on him, and Noy and Kraftwerk were a big influence on Bowie. All of that. But he was the first that I remember of being kind of in music business. Androidal, you know, that kind of, I am a robot, you know?
I always describe his voice as robotic.
Right.
You can sort of feel the angles on the vocal frequency, can't you?
I can. And so Jenny Beth from Savages appears on the album. Probably doesn't take that much explaining, but how did Danny Harrison, George Harrison, Olivia Harrison's son, end up on the record?
Do you know, we've been friends for years. Do you know what? Years ago, we were doing, the Duke Spirit were doing a lot of touring in America, and we were in LA for quite a lot of that, and he was living out there at one point and was invited to a show, and he was just the only other English person in the room, you know, and he just came up to me, he was like, oh God, I've got all these bloody Americans, how you doing, you know, and we just, I don't know, talked about how much we loved certain, I don't know, me and him were always talking about the Tricky album, Maxine K, and drinking cups of tea, and talking about how much we love Martina Topley Bird's voice. I don't know, we bonded over talking about bands from the 90s from the UK, and sort of being in a room full of Americans who were just like, you know, ridiculously enthusiastic about everything, and we were all just slightly, you know, appalled.
You're not thinking of going back to America anytime soon, are you?
Oh, I'd like to, yeah, I'd love to. I do think about it, but haven't sort of made that booking.
You think your visa might get turned down now after what you've just said. But anyway, you're not taking this record out on the road then?
Well, I'm going to, I'll tell you what I am doing. I'm playing Rough Trade East on Record Store Day in London. So I know that's only London, but that's, you know, that's what's happening at the moment.
Well, you're used to working out in the wilds where nobody lives, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. We're playing in Sicily. I tell you what, we're playing a festival called Ipsic Rog.
Nice.
Ipsic Rock. That doesn't quite sound Italian, does it?
Ipsic
Rock.
Enough.
We're playing in Sicily. I'll tell you exactly when. It's August the 11th.
Fab.
So that's a little trip. That's an adventure of a lifetime.
Right. All right.
and then yeah. Well, I'm you know, if there's any agents out there, that's what I'm lacking at the moment. I need an agent to book me so I can play these beautiful songs in other places.
Well, there you go. That's just an olive branch being handed out to all of the agents of the UK. So I hope somebody's listening. I've enjoyed it thoroughly, as I would. But you've got one more tune to do for us now. Then, so what are you going to do?
It's a very easy title for you, Mark. It's called Woo.
Oh, woo! Right, I'm on it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.